Welcome back to yet another episode of the Hardcore Casual with your boy, Bass the Kid. As always, please like and subscribe and share with a friend, a colleague, an associate, a distant family member, an immediate family member, an enemy, and anyone in between. I appreciate all the views, appreciate all the comments. Look, this week's been busy, as you just saw. Like, I've covered some topics in the previous video. There's more to go. So without further ado, let's get into it. So earlier on this week, it was pretty much reported as a 90% done deal that Canelo Alvarez and Badou Jack would face each other later on this year up at cruiserweight for the WBC title. Now, this supposedly is all contingent on a catchweight. Now, I know that this was likely supposed to take place around about sort of that November, December time. We know Canelo likes to fight in May, September for the Mexican dates, but this one obviously would have been a slightly different occasion. Now, I know there was loads of sort of detractors from the catchweight thing. Chris Andre was a big, sort of a big proponent of that, and he was majorly averse to there being any form of catchweight or having to have Badou Jack drop down. Now, to be totally honest, I understand that position because there's a weight limit for a reason. Like, you should have the right to go up to that limit. That being said, the one reason why in this particular situation I would say, well, I wouldn't begrudge that catchweight. I mean, number one, Canelo's a tiny guy. That's that shouldn't really matter, but it does. Number two, the money that you get to face him at this catchweight specifically is more money than you're going to make against any other opponent, because he is the face of boxing on that hemisphere. Like, there's no one above him, there's no one that draws more, there's no one that is, that has a better revenue stream. So you're going to make a huge amount. So for you to make a concession doesn't seem that unreasonable. Now, when we talk about the catchweight, you also have to remember it's the one division outside of heavyweight that has a 25-pound swing from the low end up to the top end. Not everyone realistically can weigh 198, 199 pounds. Some people are just unfortunate enough that they're just a bit too big for light heavy to be able to make that comfortably and safely, but they're way too small to carry 200 pounds. Now, that doesn't fall into Canelo. 175 is actually too big for him. Makes him slow, makes him ponderous, gas tanks gone, all that kind of stuff. So realistically, you'd want to make it a somewhat competitive affair. It doesn't ultimately just want to be a one-sided beatdown. Now, Badou Jack is a guy who came from 168, so he used to make 168 pounds. He's a naturally bigger guy than Canelo. We know that. He competed the vast majority of his career at 175, and then now he's basically gone up to 200 pounds, but he's been up there for 2 years. But realistically, could he come down to 190, 185? I think if they was to say catchweight 190, he comes in at 190 and Canelo came in at, say, 181 or something like that. Personally, I wouldn't be averse to that, if I'm going to be totally honest, based on that particular dynamic, because I feel that Badou Jack can lose those 10 pounds because he used to lose the 25. Don't get me wrong, I know at his age it is a lot harder to lose and keep weight off, but I don't think he walks around at more than 215 max. I don't think he walks around heavier than I do. And if we're looking at it realistically, I feel as if he could maybe be able to drop 20 pounds from there, 210, 215 down to 190. I don't really see that as being too much of an issue. But I understand anyone who thinks no, he should be allowed to weigh what he weighs as long as he's under the limit. And yeah, if that's the case, then cool, that's how you ride. But swerveball. So now you've got Jermall Charlo supposedly being a front runner for a Canelo fight in September on his comeback fight after being out of the ring for 2 years, which wouldn't necessarily be, to me, an interesting or competitive fight. This guy supposedly suffered a back injury before then. Now he's going, after 2 years of inactivity, going straight into the ring with one of the pound for pound greats within the sport right now. Arguably, you could still have Canelo as pound for pound number one. Realistically, you can. The Bivol defeat aside, he avenged. He had 2 good wins after that. One against a reigning unified champion who came up to take his challenge, and the other one against one of his mandatories. So he's back in the winner's bracket. Yes, he had a defeat, but defeats don't necessarily take you away from that list, especially if you rebound off of them. But if he's not number one, he's in the top 5. There's no argument there. I would say within the top 4 quite easily. So yeah, that would not bode very well for Jermall Charlo, and it wouldn't be an interesting fight as Canelo's next fight either. So I wouldn't particularly accept that or be happy if that was the case. I feel like Jermall Charlo's got his own work to do down at 160 with Charles Adames. And if he can't make 160 anymore, then vacate that belt and move up to 168 properly. But then another swerve goes in there. Him and Demetrius Andre got on a video call or a link or a Instagram. I don't know what form they was using. Maybe it was a FaceTime, where they was basically trying to make a fight between the two of them for September, October, at a catch weight of 165 pounds. No belts on the line. So I really don't know what's kind of going on with this whole little triangle of people. Not to mention you got, David Benavidez's manager Samson Lukowicz putting out fake offers and then withdrawing them within a week, even though they already stated that there was a fight signed with Morrell back after the Caleb Plant fight was won back in March. And these are all things that people don't, it's almost like they gloss over or they forget about, but I don't forget these things. So this whole situation is messy, and I don't really know where to proceed. I don't know what's going to happen. Eddie Hearn said that they're still trying to find a number that Dmitry Bivol would be happy with to do that rematch in September. I personally don't think that's going to take place either, so I think Bivol is going to end up fighting someone else in either August, September or October, and I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up fighting Alexander Vostik in a voluntary while they try and wait for the WBC and Artur Beterbiev and see what happens between him and Callum Smith. But that's just me kind of riffing, so we'll kind of see what happens. I've kind of gone a bit all over the place, but it's all centered around Canelo's next opponent and how that breaks down. Let me know what you think in the comments. Speaking of Dmitry Bivol, so he came out in an interview, I think it was with Radio Raheem for Seconds Out, so shout out to him. And I think he had a really good interview with Maestro as well. So shout out to Maestro, because that was a really good one. Him and Vadim Konolov, I think, was there as well. Whereby he's basically saying it's totally unfair what the WBC are doing, or are sort of especially in relation to him. Like, if you're a world champion, how can you claim to be a world champion when there's people within the world that you won't fight, or that you're not allowed to fight for whatever reason? And ultimately he's saying politics and boxing should not mix. And he also said if they're talking about him having to go through a quote-unquote process because of him being Russian, he said, well, my passport's not Russian. Like, I have a Kyrgyzstan passport. Like, So I'm a citizen of two other places. I've spent maybe 4 months in Russia over the last year and a half or something. You know, he said, your champion, the champion of your particular organization, is more Russian than I am. I think he actually said that in the interview. I'd have to go back and double check, but he said something like Beterbiev is more Russian than me. And you say he is fine to fight because he lives in Canada, but he's in Russia more than I'm in Russia. So again, every time you hear this, you just realize that Mauricio Sulaimán's he's just a nasty piece of work. And then he came back basically on Twitter saying, oh, well, look, we do this for the integrity of the sport. We're a sanctioning body that champions peace, and that we don't, and we don't want these kind of conflicts, and we don't allow sort of dictatorships or whatever. We apologize if this, stops or offends other people or impedes other people's abilities to do their job or to do whatever, but it's we don't mean to impede you, but this is for the good of whatever. I don't particularly listen to all of the words, but ultimately, like, if we're being honest, Mauricio's a piece of shit. There's absolutely no reason for them to be involved in this quote unquote war that's going on. That's got nothing to do with you and your sanctioning body. And then if we're really going to go into it, how many people or how many countries do you have champions from that are currently, or their country is involved or has been involved in these type of, geopolitical or geo-based wars around the globe? There's quite a few, and there's some of your current champions who are embroiled in that right now, but yet all of a sudden, because of this Russia-Ukraine thing, you want this nice little PR, almost this nice little PR relations exercise for yourself to look positive, that you go get involved in this, but then by doing that, you actually make yourself seem worse, because now you're targeting and alienating innocent people. None of it makes sense. And I'm actually glad that Dmitry Bivol had those interviews where he actually openly called it out and said, not just that it's not fair, but how can you punish me when your own champion is more from the country that you're claiming to not support, yet you haven't stripped him of that title? And obviously this is also to say that he can't make an undisputed fight right now because he can't get all the belts on the line. Now, yes, realistically, they can make the fight, because you can have Bivol versus Beterbiev, and if Beterbiev was to win, he would be undisputed because he would actually get Bivol's belt. That would be the last belt of them. He's already the lineal within the division as well, so he would be Ring Magazine #1 as well, which I think he already is, because I think Vostik was previously. So all of that stuff basically is there in abundance. You can, he will be undisputed. If Bivol were to win, he technically would still only be unified because he wouldn't have access to that WBC belt. However, this is the one unique time where I actually believe that if he won, everyone would call him undisputed anyway, and there would be no dispute regarding it, because he beat the guy who had all of the belts. The guy didn't drop any of the belts. It's just the one of the belts was not allowed to be on the line. But he beat the guy who had all of those belts. This isn't the same with Teofimo Lopez and Vasily Lomachenko, where Lomachenko relinquished a belt, which prevented that undisputed fight from taking place, rather than face a mandatory, which he had. Bivol and Beterbiev, they've done everything required of them in terms of mandatory challenges and unifications. They've done it all. So to me, I think if he was still to make that fight, he would still be crowned undisputed by everyone, and I don't think anyone would care that he wasn't in possession of that WBC belt, because they know the politics behind it. That also being said, Bob Arum pretty much vetoed that, saying he will not be looking to do any fight with Bivol, because the WBC won't allow it due to the Russia sanctions, and until their stance changes, his stance won't change either. So yeah, he's also using that as a way to get out of jail free card to not make that fight, because you know he don't want to make fights with Eddie Hearn and have his fighter have to travel across platform to a competitor like DAZN. He don't mind if it's Sky, he don't mind if it's BT, but it can't be DAZN. But hey, them's the breaks, right? Speaking of the WBC, let's go back to the WBC World Heavyweight Champion Tyson Fury. Essentially, he's gone back out to calling out any and everyone again. Now he's basically said that he wants to fight John Jones and Francis Ngannou on the same night. Again, you look through the comments of these videos, people are like, brother, shut up, we don't care, like whatever. So clearly no one cares what he's doing unless it's Usyk or unless it's Joshua. Joshua's got his plans, Fury seems to have his plans, or lack thereof. Supposedly he will be fighting September 2nd. Frank Warren did say that that is pretty much a locked on guarantee that he will be fighting, but against who, we've got no idea. So very interesting. I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but I have a feeling it's going to be Ajit Caballero. The only other person I could potentially see would have been Jarrell Miller, but yeah, I think it's going to be Ajit Caballero, because if they can't get a big marquee name in there, they'll get someone that ultimately is not going to cost them even $1 million to put in the ring. So Tyson can get paid whatever he wants to get paid, and they can scrimp on the opponent. To be honest, if it was me, I would run back the Otto Wallin match, have Fury Wallin 2, because there was a lot of controversy as to why it wasn't stopped on the card and everything. People know who he is. That's a serviceable name. If you want to do your little stadium fight, you know, your 50, 60,000, whatever it is, I'm sure you could pack some people into one of the stadiums at Wembley or whatever, you know, maybe not 90, but you might get a good 60, 65,000 in there. Have the rematch with Otto Wallin, and then that will at least put you in decent stead for when it comes to the Usyk fight, if you are going to have that in the winter months. But that's just my take on it. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. So you guys put in the comments what you think of what we've discussed today. And yeah, thank you very much for watching. And as always, it's the Hardcore Casual.